Okay, thanks very much for inviting me to give a talk today at your conference. It's a pleasure to speak. British Lichen Society, one of the key organisations in the Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest, so it's great to come and give something back. Um, my name's Julie Stoneman. I'm Saving Scotland's Rainforest Project Manager. I've been in this post for about a year now. I work for Plant Life, but most of the time I have this hat on my head called the Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest. I'll talk about that, what that is later, but my role is essentially about looking for opportunities for collaboration between these partners and driving them forward. I should say right now that I'm no expert on rainforest. I'm definitely not an expert on lichens. So this talk today isn't about, the habitat, ecological habitat or anything. It's really an overview of what the project's about. So it's about where is Scotland's rainforest? Why is it so special? What are the threats that face it? What is the Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest? And what our current focus is. So Scotland's rainforest is part of this biome called the coastal temperate rainforest biome, which has this rather disjunct distribution around the world. It's a very rare kind of biome. It's only less than 1% of the world's surface has the climatic conditions suitable to support it. What you need is very high annual rainfall, mild year-round conditions, so very few frosty days, and very clean air. And of course, we've got mountains of that on the west coast of Scotland, and there are in different places as well. Just before we continue, I'd like to compare that to the boreal forest. So this is the boreal forest, that vast swathe of conifers that encircles the northern hemisphere. And we have the Caledonian pine forest within this, of course. It's right at its western edge of the biome. But if you were to go to the pub, if you could go to the pub, if you were to go to the pub and ask people what's the most important kind of woodland in Scotland, I bet most of them would say, well, it's Caledonian pine forest, isn't it? And Scotland's rainforest seems to have a very low profile. Very few people have heard about it. Partly this could be because we've been referring to it by lots of different names. So Atlantic woodland was a term that's been used a lot, still used a lot amongst the conservation community. Plant Life ran a project previously and called it Celtic rainforest, and that's a lot of our materials refer to Celtic rainforest, and other people have got other names. But I think, as we've said in the Alliance, if we're going to really save this habitat, we have to all start calling it by one name. So we chose Scotland's rainforest, and that's why it's the Alliance for Scotland's Rainforest. And those of you with memories, with good memories, remember that it used to be the Atlantic Woodlands Alliance, but we changed it for this purpose because it is a rainforest. That's very exciting. So let's talk about that and let's save it. In Scotland, this is where you find it. It's a big geographic zone from the north of Sutherland down to the south of Argyll. It's got a hard border down the eastern edge of it here, but it is rather a fuzzy border. Within this is about 30,000 hectares of what we call core rainforest. So this is woodlands which have developed that flora that is associated with rainforest. Lots of people think about rainforest as oak woodlands or hazel woodlands particularly, but we call rainforest any semi-natural woodlands within that zone. It can be rainforest, and there's about 30,000 hectares left of it. There are another 92,000 hectares of semi-natural woodland in this zone, but that may not have developed the flora associated with rainforest, but it could potentially do that. So it's ash woodlands, it's pine woodlands, it's birch woodlands, it's any semi-natural woodlands in this zone. So it's not actually the trees, of course, that make the rainforest so important. These are globally important. This is a globally important habitat. It's the lichens and the bryophytes, which you'll find in swathes in these woodlands. You'll find them everywhere, on the rocks, on the trees, in the ravines. They're carpeted with them. And it's the sheer quantity and diversity of these species that makes the rainforest so special. So 1 hectare of Scotland's rainforest can contain more than 200 species of lichen. And it's been shown that one of the best sites has 200 species of bryophytes in them. And that makes these woodlands among the richest for bryophytes and lichens in all of Europe, because we've got the right climate, we've got clean air, and we've got the woodlands themselves. But unfortunately, Scotland's rainforest is facing multiple threats, and these are large-scale threats and incredibly challenging threats. So the first is one that you'll be probably very familiar with, a nice pretty bush called Rhododendron ponticum, introduced into the UK in 1763, since run rampant through all of the UK and is particularly prevalent in Scotland's rainforest, and the conditions are just fantastic for it. It outcompetes the native trees, it shades out the bryophytes and lichens. Almost all the rainforest has some rhododendron in it, but in 40% it's a real problem. So this is a challenge, and the longer that you leave it, the worse it gets. So we're up against the clock in really tackling this issue. The other big issue is deer. So high levels of grazing are preventing regeneration within these woodlands, and that affects around, again, about 40% of the rainforest. As you know, this is a hot political potato at the moment as we wait for the Scottish Government to respond to the deer working group recommendations. But the idea that such high deer numbers aren't in the public interest is gaining ground. So there is hope that we will tackle that. I should say at this point that it's not only deer that are the issue. Other herbivores, sheep and goats and so on, also have problems. And also, if you don't have any grazing at all, that's also a problem for the habitat. These habitats need some grazing within them. It's not as simple as just sticking a fence around it. And in fact, Andy Acton, on behalf of the British Lichen Society, has been preparing a paper about the importance of some herbivore browsing within these woodlands for the benefit of lichens in particular, but lower plants in general. And once that's done, we will have a kind of webinar with the Alliance members to look at how you really apply this practically on the ground. And again, that's all about our collaborative working. Another issue is plantations. Plantations, about 20% of of the rainforest is overplanted with exotic conifers in the 70s and 80s, when it was perfectly acceptable to do that sort of thing, and that seemed to be very good. But now I think we have learned a bit more, and there's quite a lot of work, particularly by the government agency Forest and Land Scotland, to restore these paused plantations, these plantations on ancient woodlands, which is a long-going, expensive and tough job, but it is in play. Ash dieback is an issue that's now spreading in from the south. Ash is a really important tree. The alkalinity level of its bark is important for a series of lichens. Fortunately, these lichens can thrive on other trees like hazel, rowan, aspen and elm, and we do know that there is some resistance in ash as well. So there is some hope for the future, but we don't really know enough about what's happening yet to know what its impact is really going to be. Climate change is here again, always having its impact. We know already that it's having an effect on lichen communities in the rainforest. In future decades, it's predicted that it will eat away at the eastern edge of the rainforest zone. So it's really important that we make these woodlands as resilient as we possibly can to this and the other threats. These woodlands are also very fragmented. So of those 30,000 hectares, remaining patches are small with a medium of only 25 hectares. So it's important that we expand these patches and connect them together and improve their resilience. So in short, this matter requires really urgent attention, and that's where the Alliance comes in. So this Alliance started in around 2017. It's now since grown to about 21 different organisations, quite a variety as you see. It was started by Woodland Trust. The West Coast of Scotland is a really important area for Woodland Trust, and they understood very early on that they can't really tackle these sorts of issues alone, which is why the Alliance came into being. In the end of 2019, Woodland Trust signed a memorandum of understanding with Plant Life to really drive this together. So that's why I'm employed by Plant Life, but I work really closely with Woodland Trust and the rest of these organisations to drive this work forward. So this is the Alliance's vision. You can tell it was written by committee because it's really, really long. But if you just read the bold bits, you can get a feel for it. So the vision is for Scotland's rainforest to thrive once again. We want it to be in bigger and better condition, expanded and reconnected, more diverse, and even greater abundance of rare and exceptional mosses, liverworts, lichens, and fungi. We want it to be more resilient. And this third paragraph is worth taking note of as well. We want it to contribute to sustainable development and economic growth supported by businesses and local communities. And that's really important because we want to conserve this habitat not just for the biodiversity interest alone, but because these are really important woodlands for people who live and work and indeed visit west coast of Scotland. They provide jobs, they provide places for people's well-being. And health. So it's important and that's an important argument that we need to keep talking about if we are to convince the decision makers to put their backs into helping us conserve this important habitat. The first thing the Alliance did was produce this report on the left called the State of Scotland's Rainforest. You can Google this and download it. This really lays out the case as to why Scotland's rainforest is important and the threats it faces. And this really laid it down on the line for the first time for this habitat and got it into the limelight at last. Alongside this came a strategy to save Scotland's rainforest, and this is pretty much everything you can do, the partnership should be doing to save the rainforest. But you can't do it all. So when I came in, about a year ago, we asked ourselves the question, if we've got 3 years, what are the most important things we can do which will have most impact? And these were the 4 that we felt were most important. We want to establish landscape scale projects. We want to identify how the Scottish Government could give greater priority to this habitat. We want to encourage and enable landowners and managers to restore and expand their rainforest. And we want to maximise our collaboration to continually improve our understanding of how best to manage the rainforest. So it's the 2 on the left that we've really been focusing on in the last year. The 2 on the right is limited what we can do under COVID restrictions, but we hope to really start to motor on those this year. Now, I know I'm just slightly running out of time, so just very briefly, these are our landscape scale projects. The 2 on the left are the ones that are kind of ready to go. We just need to get the funding. So we're working together to get applications for funding as strong as we can. The 3 on the right are in scoping at the moment, so we're hoping that these will come online in the years to come. And there are others in this zone which are landscape scale projects. So these are really important. But if we really want to do this, we need to persuade the government to give us the support and backing that we need. And it's all about browsing levels. It's about a strategic roadmap for these invasive non-native species. It's about recognising that the restoration and expansion of Scotland's rainforest is a nature-based solution. And these are the buzzwords that politicians talk in, and they're important because the rainforest could deliver, say, on the Scottish Government's climate targets and so on, and biodiversity targets. So we need to be talking in that frame all the time. The other thing we really need to do is speak with one voice. We have to use consistent language. We have to be giving out very clear, consistent messaging to the people who can make a difference. We need to push those messages out at any chance we have. So that's hopefully something we're going to do this year. At the end of last year, we launched our website, savingscotlandsrainforest.org.uk. Please have a look on there. There's a film that we launched this week, actually. There's and you can go, there's a map there which tells you where you can go. We've also got a Twitter site and a hashtag, so please do use those and promote the rainforest amongst your peers, amongst your colleagues, amongst your friends. Please do come and ask questions if you have any. I can attempt to answer any you've got now, but there's my email address if you'd like to contact me in the future. So thank you.